Okay, thank you. So as a really brief introduction to who I am, I'm actually a research physicist, currently working at CCFE, which is the Culham Centre for Fusion Energy. It's based in Abingdon, near Oxfordshire. And at CCFE, we essentially create miniature suns and trap them in magnetic bottles. And then we work out how we can extract energy from these miniature suns to ultimately replace fossil fuels and provide a carbon-free energy alternative. But becoming a physicist wasn't really the career path that I actually had in mind. Between my GCSEs and my A-levels, I actually changed schools to Simon Langton, where Becky was working. And in the first year of A-levels, we had the opportunity to go to CERN. And this is probably still one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And probably will always be, because it introduced me to a world of science and scientific research that I never previously knew existed. And when we came back from that trip, I became part of the CERN at School project. I was quite relatively shy student. I lacked a lot of confidence in my ability in science, but being part of that project allowed me to kind of see the project grow, ask questions in a really accessible way. And it was genuinely inspiring to see that in a school classroom, we were doing real scientific experiments. So we weren't just putting weights on the end of a spring or pushing a car down a hill. We were doing something that was genuinely of scientific interest. And that would be written up in a research paper that students around me were going to write up in research papers. So this was really inspiring to me. So then it came time to think about universities, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had a real interest and a real passion for physics at this point, but I didn't think I was smart enough to actually be a physicist. So I thought I would go down the route of economics and study economics at university. So I went to a few open days. And very quickly realised that it wasn't going to be for me. It wasn't inspiring enough for what I wanted to do. So luckily, my family around me and my teachers encouraged me to pursue what was interesting to me, not just what I found easy or what I thought would be an easy thing to do, but something that actually genuinely inspired me and interested me. So thankfully, from their kind of enthusiasm, I did end up doing a physics degree at university, and it turned out well because I ended up with a master's in physics and then went on to do a PhD in physics as well. So I'm now actually a doctor of nuclear physics and working at CCFE, hopefully solving the world's energy crisis. So hopefully making a real genuine difference with my research in 30 years' time. So being part of CERN at School, as I said, really provided an accessible way for me to develop this passion for physics. And it's such a great opportunity to be part of something that sort of allows you to kind of grow into it. I didn't necessarily need to lead a project or be doing something on mine, but just sort of being part of that environment where you're kind of seeing people be part of real scientific research, having real scientific outcomes, was really inspiring to me. And I hope that all of you who are currently involved in projects through IRIS kind of take away from today that you need to follow what you're interested in. You need to follow your heart as well as your head. So don't just do what's easy, do what's inspiring to you, and hopefully you will surprise yourself. I'm sure you will surprise yourself. And I'm happy to carry on talking after this, but I will pass on to Peter. Thank you.
My name is Peter Hatfield. I'm a postdoc studying astrophysical plasmas at the University of Oxford. So, like Chantal, I kind of did an undergraduate degree and then did a PhD and now a doctorate in astrophysics. And we were kind of both inspired by the kind of proto-IRIS 10 years ago now. So this is kind of just a very kind of quick, again, personal story of how IRIS has kind of had a key part of my life for the past 10 years. And as many people were saying earlier, just to kind of say thank you to IRIS for inspiring me to and letting me do lots of amazing things. So I'm just going to highlight the two projects that I worked on whilst I was a sixth former in IRIS's very early days, and how Oh, sorry. And how I'm still working on projects related to this 10 years later. So this was a project which I did with Professor Rose, who is now a trustee of IRIS, trying to work out the geometry of solar flares on other stars only by measuring the spectrum of the star. Professor Rose and Professor Parker were able to help me actually write this up and get this published in a peer-reviewed journal, which was a huge challenge for me at the time, but was extremely rewarding. It was a lot of time for me at work at the time, but it was no more realistic thing than to actually see what it's really like to be a research scientist. So it was then another 6 years between this until the next time I published a scientific paper, because you have to do boring things like undergraduate degrees. But I did all that, and then I really was an astrophysicist 6 years later, doing work that was very similar to what I'd done when I was in sixth form. So, interesting how that works out. The other project which I was involved with, which many more people in this room probably involved with, was called Lucid, which was part of CERN at school, and this was designing an experiment to go on a satellite into space, which was supported by people at the UK Space Agency and the Medipix collaboration. I think probably only 2 or 3 people in the room recognise this, but that was what the version 0 looked like, and it kind of eventually went into space in 2014, and space collecting data for 2013. And it was my great privilege to be kind of as a postdoc. I kind of worked with several sixth formers, 3 sixth formers, one of whom was then an undergraduate, to write up this and turn this into a published paper. So it was very inspiring to be able to kind of help the next generation of researchers kind of turn their amazing ideas into something that the whole world's academic community can kind of see what the great scientists in IRIS are doing. And it's been very inspiring to hear what's happening across the whole country. And again, thank you very much to IRIS for 10 years kind of being a huge part of my research career. Thank you.